Welcome back to the PCC podcast, and I'm your host, Marissa Chong. Still weird to say, but I'm getting used to it, and it's my Facebook name, so it counts. But we are back with episode 2 of exactly how I would coach you through your health and fitness journey. Pretty cool. This is honestly just such a fun series because it's been something that I have been meaning to do for a while. And I'll be honest, I was just nervous that I didn't have all the right information, or I didn't have everything ready, or I wouldn't be able to articulate it right. And that held me back from sharing that information. And I'm really happy to just be rolling with it. I got my outline, I know what I need to cover, and it's stuff that I know like the back of my hand. And at the end of the day, if I could help just one person who is an action taker, who is taking notes, who is studying this, who is really implementing it and just needs the know-how, then I'm doing my job, right? And so I hope that the part 1 was valuable for you. I hope that it was a different perspective than you are used to hearing, because so many coaches will just give you some calories and numbers, and we are going to talk about those things because you must be able to understand what is going into your body to manipulate a calorie deficit and see tangible results in a predictable way. But there's a lot that you can do before you touch that can make things move the needle. So if you haven't already listened to part 1, I suggest that you make sure that you go back and you listen to that first, because if you listen to this first, you're going to fall into the trap of what most people do, which is get right into a calorie deficit, cut straight to the chase, skip all of the foundational steps that make this last and make the weight loss stick, and frankly, just rush the process and set yourself up for failure in the long run. So with that being said, let's talk about protocols. So the context here from episode 1 is that you have set the foundations. You have all of the base habits down, as well as a understanding of the intangibles. So you have built consistency by taking the pressure off and allowing this to become a lifestyle. And this is what most people are truly just missing in their journey. And so there is a lot that's packed into that. Again, I cannot understate the importance, or overstate, I'm not sure. I cannot under or overstate the importance of going and listening to episode 1, because it is the foundation and you're gonna wanna skip it. You're gonna be tempted. Don't skip it. I beg you, if you're gonna listen to the series, please. So you have all that down and you are eating balanced meals across the day. You're listening to your hunger cues. You are overall feeling well-nourished, energized, like this is a lifestyle, and maybe even you've lost some inches, some pounds, and seen some body composition changes just from these habits alone. And so now we can get into what happens next. And ultimately, if you have somewhere in the realm of 20 to 50 pounds or so to lose, you're going to hit a point where you may, and this is a big may, but it's very, very common for women who have been through the diet ringer. You have done the Optavias, the Weight Watchers, the Nooms, the counting calories, everything under the sun, and your metabolism is a little familiar with caloric restriction. If that is the case, then chances are you're going to have to take your nutrition a step further to get to the end-all be-all goal of your physique. And so what does that mean, right? So all these changes that we said, healthy lifestyle changes, eating balanced meals, moving regularly, getting your workouts in, being consistent with nutrition, understanding how to mitigate emotional stress and boredom eating, listening to hunger cues. I might have already said that one. All of those things can and will contribute to positive body composition changes, big or small, depending on your diet history. The more diet history you have, typically the smaller the results you'll see in that sort of a phase, just because your metabolism is more adapted. But once you have kind of, here's the mentality that we're going to take through the entire journey actually, is make as much progress as possible with as little effort as possible. Meaning that if you can see inches go down and the scale go down from just implementing balanced meals into your day and walking, do that until you don't see progress anymore. And then from there, add in the next thing when you hit a plateau. And the key here is most people don't know how to accurately track progress, make sure that they're accounting for all sorts of progress, and accurately assessing a plateau, which we will go over. But that's where people typically go wrong with it, and then they just start to slash calories out the gate and shoot themselves in the foot. So as much progress as possible with as little effort as possible. So when you have hit the point where all the progress metrics, which we will go over, I think in this episode, have plateaued, have stalled, this is the time to now start adding quantitative measures to our tracking, our progress, and our journey. Why? Because if we continue to layer in more and more and more variables that we are keeping account of, that we are managing and measuring, then we're going to have more control. The phrase, you can't manage what you don't measure, is absolutely true. And in a weight loss journey, the more diet history, the more adaptive your metabolism is, the more you're going to have to pay attention to these variables later in the process, right? So look at it this way. Same thing along the lines of as much progress as you can make with as little effort as possible. If you have 100 pounds to lose, then at the point of losing 100 to maybe 50 pounds down, you might be able to not manage or measure very many things. You've probably heard of these things, like somebody that you know might have just cut out soda and lost 20 pounds. That is an example of that. You don't need to make changes further than that. But if you are in the final stretch of the final 20, final 15, final 10, final 5 pounds, you're gonna have to measure and manage a couple more variables than that, right? So that's what I mean. So, okay, let's get to it. I beat this horse into the ground. I think you get what is important here about making sure you're not jumping in too fast. That is what I'm trying to get across here. Protocols, protocols, protocols. So you've got the foundation. Balanced meals are being eaten. You're eating protein at every meal, vegetables, fruits, starchy carbohydrates, healthy fats, listening to your hunger cues. You're plateaued. What next? So the next thing from here is to start to bridge the gap between this whole calories, macros thing over here that you may or may not be familiar with or may or may not make sense to you, and your habits and what you're doing. What people often do is they view these two things as completely separate. So, okay, habits, cool, but calories, like once I have calories, I'm just gonna eat whatever fits into the calories, not even worry about this stuff anymore. That can't happen, right? We can't just flip a switch and go one to the other. We want to actually bridge that gap. And so how we do that is typically with our clients, we'll take it one step at a time. So that's what we're gonna do here. So the first thing is we're going to look at our most prized macronutrient, protein. Protein is often, we've heard this time and time again, eat 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of your body weight in protein. So what does this mean? Where does this come from? In order to effectively lose fat, build muscle, retain muscle in your body, especially as a woman, and especially as a woman over the age of 30, this is going to be incredibly important for you. But if you are 200 pounds, 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein sounds ridiculous, and it is. So you don't need to take that rule and live by gospel. You need to look at it in the context of your goal weight, your lean body mass. So think about it this way. How much muscle how much muscle is on your body is not the same as how much you actually weigh, right? Especially if you have weight to lose. If you know you've got like 30 pounds of body fat that you want to lose, then of course your total body weight is not reflective of your lean body mass, right? So this is why we'll set a protein goal more in accordance with your lean body mass, or for other words, your goal weight, like your rough goal weight. So if you're 200 pounds, you want to weigh 150, then your goal weight and your protein target should be calculated around that 150. If that makes sense, that makes you breathe a deep sigh of relief. I hope that that is helpful for you. So the rule of thumb here is 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of that goal weight or lean body mass. And so with that being said, that could range anywhere from probably 130, 125 or so grams of protein to 160, 70 grams on the top end, ranges around that point. And so that is going to be much more realistic than 200. And so that's where you start. And I would always advise starting on the low end, but let's take a look, right? So let's just take our meals that we're currently eating on a regular basis and start plugging them in to our tracking app. I don't care if it's MyFitnessPal, Lose It, Chronometer, whatever, but plug it in to the app and just start to see with your balanced meals across the day and your snacks, how many grams of protein are you getting? If you're eating 3 meals and 1 or 2 snacks, chances are you're going to fall in the realm of 100 to 120 grams of protein, but some people may fall a little bit lower than that, 80, 90 grams, just by nature of that's what the portion sizes kind of get us to. So there's going to be some increasing that has to be done here, but we start to see and assign value to the lean proteins that we've chosen of, oh, this has this many grams of protein, or, you know, this meat has more protein than this meat compared to how much fat is in it. Or if you are like a lot of people that I talk to, you realize that 2 eggs as your protein source for breakfast is only 12 grams of protein total. And then you're like, oh, that's not a full serving of 25 to 35 grams of protein. Let me add some egg whites in, right? And so that is where we start to bridge that gap in just one variable, because it's enough to think about, right? Like, we got so much going on in our life. Yeah, we want to dedicate our entire life to fixing our health and fitness, but we got other stuff. So one thing at a time here. And then let's really pay attention to how to bridge that gap with protein and understand how the portions and the habits translate into a target gram of protein goal. And then continuing with our habits to have those balanced meals, but then we're just working on maybe increasing our portion size of protein at each of those meals and being able to consistently hit that target or get closer to that target, right? So you might be starting at 100 grams of protein per day, and maybe you need to get up to 130, 140. You know, for some, that might be as simple as, oh, let me just down a protein shake. But for others, it might be a struggle. So, you know, be patient with yourself. Go from 100 to 110 grams. Go from 110 grams to 120. Rather than trying to make the jump all at once, I promise you that makes it easier. And that's what we do with a lot of our clients. So patience is the name of the game there. But let's say we get that protein goal down. We're hitting that consistently. From there, we are, at this point, usually plugging in all the food that we eat. So we've gone into the practice of not only implementing our habits, having our balanced meals, listening to these mindful eating techniques, but also now we've plugged in everything every day so we can keep track of our protein. But then we'll also start to see where our carbs, our fats, our calories, our fiber falls on a regular basis. And this is where we start to build a database. And so I can give you formulas, and you can find formulas online that can tell you how many calories you should eat and, you know, what your macros should be, and you can find a billion calculators and a million different results. But the reality is that doesn't really help you a ton, because you don't have an understanding of what you're currently eating yet. And so what I love about our method is that you're learning about your current baseline through observation without trying to change a bunch of shit first. Pardon my French. Just frustrates me, this industry. So anyways, so now we have data to back up what have the last 1, 2, 3 weeks of our caloric intake looked like. And then we can also look at our progress metrics and see what is our weight doing with our increased protein and our just logging everything mentality alongside our habits. And you see how stacking and scaffolding this stuff together over time is way less overwhelming than throwing it all in at once. If someone just said, here's your calorie goal, go for it right off the bat. So that's where we end up. And then we can look at that and say, okay, average calories the past 2-3 weeks have been blank, and my weight on average over the past 3 weeks has done what? It has gone down, it's gone up. And so the next thing we'll go over is how to look at progress so you can assess plateaus and make changes. So from there, we can assess, what do we need to do with our calories? Do we need to increase them because we're actually kind of under eating? Do we need to decrease them because we are not seeing weight loss yet and our calories are high enough to do so? Do we need to keep them the same for a little bit and actually just build more consistency and reduce variability? And so those are all viable questions that can all lead to better body composition results. So for example, and I can't say like exact numbers for sure, but if your calories probably fall anything below 1,600 as a woman, and that's what you're eating when we do these assessments, chances are you're probably going to need to increase your caloric intake and work on reducing variability, increasing consistency and accuracy of tracking and accuracy of your macronutrient spread before diving into a caloric deficit. Why? Because if we were to pull lower from that base of 1,600, it's only a matter of time before we're just basically in another crash diet and ruining our metabolism again, eating 1,000 calories, getting nowhere, banging our head against the wall. So again, patience is your biggest key in this journey because it's going to test you to not cut calories down right off the bat. But if we do the same things over and over again and expect a different result, are we really going to expect something different? That's just insanity, right? So basically, anything, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to put a blanket. I would say even below 1,700, 1,800 for most women can be too low to start. But if we're in the realm of 18, 19, 2,000 or above calories per day, and we are hitting that protein target, that could be a really great opportunity to either just reduce variability or start to decrease calories if we have consistency. So what is variability? Variability is if one day I eat 1,800 calories and the next day I eat 2,500 and it fluctuates up and down like this consistently. What we want to do is really narrow that in so that we have consistency day to day. And what that reflects in looking like in our meals is we're probably eating a lot of the same like staple skeleton meals per day. Like breakfast is repeatable, lunches and dinners are prepped. We kind of have it like on hand. We have that repeatability. We have predictability. That's not 100% possible for everyone, but it is absolutely doable for most people. So bringing that variability down, it just increases predictability for your body, your appetite, and actually can really impact your overall ability to see better progress in the short and long term for psychological, tactical, and physiological reasons. So with that being said, I would always suggest reducing variability before cutting calories down. But if you have all those things, let's say your calories are high, you've reduced variability, you're hitting your protein target. From here, we can either assign other macronutrient targets like carbs and fats and track all of our macros, or we can reduce our calorie goal and start to explore that deficit. And so I say one or the other because, again, make as much progress as you possibly can without making changes. And so adding the complexity of tracking carbs, fats, and proteins, as well as managing the total caloric intake, can be a lot and can be a lot for some people. Depends on kind of the type of brain that you have. Like, are you like a numbers and Excel sheet type of person, or are you like a abstract artistic type of person? So with that being said, you're going to want to usually make as few changes as possible. So if I say we cut calories down and we are seeing progress, then don't even worry about that. Just stay within a calorie range. And so that would be next is if you've reduced variability, you have predictability in your meals, you're hitting that calorie target, calories are pretty high, let's start to dive down. And it doesn't need to be a lot. It could be a couple hundred calories out the gate, 100, 200, 300 max calories to start. Like 10% of the total caloric intake is typically a good rule of thumb. And then consistency. Hit that for 1, 2, 3 weeks consistently. Consistently meaning at least 80% of the time. And then from there, see what our progress is doing and assess all measures of progress so that we can accurately say, am I at a plateau or am I progressing? And the thing about doing this on your own and coaching that really, really gets people is we often just think that we're at plateaus when we are truly not even close yet, because we don't know how to look at all facets of progress, and because we don't have the patience to say and the consistency to say, I did this 7 out of 7 days this week for 3 weeks straight, and all measures of progress are not moving. And when you can get to the point where you can do that and analyze progress in that way and then make an adjustment, you're golden. But most people just really truly don't get there because consistency is hard to attain, and that's okay. But that's what we're here to help with. That's what coaching is for in these phases, is that granular analysis to pull you off the ledge and be like, we are on the right track. We just need to make these little changes, or no changes at all. Stay on course. And that is sometimes the most valuable advice you could ever receive, right? So with that being said, that is how you start the process of getting into that caloric deficit the right way. And it sounds like a lot. Yeah, it is. But ultimately, if you're doing it this way, the idea is that you don't have to go through this again. So that's what's really key about this process is, yeah, it's long. Yeah, it's annoying. Yeah, it's going to test your patience. But it's the last time that you're going to have to do it and feel like, it's new or daunting, or you're not sure if it's going to work. Because once you see the payout from this method, once you see the results from these evidence-based tactics of how the best coaches in the industry and in the world are all following these same principles, then you're going to be like, oh, this works. And if I ever needed to come back to it, I know exactly what to do. I know exactly how to coach myself through it. And that's why I'm also making this episode as a refresher for anyone who needs it. So with that being said, the measures of progress that you need to keep an eye on. And I'm going to go through this quick, and then we'll go through it to start episode 3 as well, because it's really, really important. So number 1, your weight. You're going to want to take your weight every single day and then average it out every 7 days. The reason why is because your weight is going to fluctuate day to day just based on water fluctuations, sodium intake, stress, sleep, hormones, all of the above. And so to look at a weight once per week and be like, that's my progress, is totally selling yourself short. And so we want to look at, how is my weight changing from weekly average to weekly average to weekly average? And if that is trending in a direction up or down over the course of 2, 3, 4 weeks, then we can make decisions based on that, not on random fluctuations, say Sunday to Monday, because the weekend you overate and then Monday the scale was up. That's how you dig yourself into a hamster wheel. So that's how you measure weight. And then in terms of other metrics of progress that you might not be aware of, you should absolutely take progress photos at least every other week. Front, side, back, and maybe flexing if you'd like, but just a realistic look at where's your physique. Compare that 1 month apart, I would say. So your current one to whatever 4 weeks ago was. Every single week, take a look at that shifting over time. And also just your starting photo. Like, always compare current to starting. I would avoid comparing this week to last week, because that's really not going to show you anything. And then body measurements. Take a tape measure, measure your belly button, measure your glutes, measure your arms, measure your thighs, measure any area that you're like, I don't know if this is changing. Because down the road, you're going to want to see the fact that inches have changed, even if your scale weight hasn't changed at all, because that happens all the time, all the freaking time. And if we have all those different things to pick up on, then what we can do is talk ourselves off the ledge from quitting, because that's what we are often tempted to do when the scale's not moving. And then lastly, our intangible metrics. There's a ton of them, and we'll go over those in more depth in the next episode, but just to briefly touch on it, biofeedback, so energy, sleep, recovery, digestion, hunger, stress, our quality of life, our training PRs, and just overall lifestyle. Like, is this sticking? Are we consistent? Is progress? So all of those things add up to us being able to see the big picture as coaches, you being able to see the big picture for yourself, and essentially, yeah, just staying on the path, because this is long. This is a long journey. And with these changes, you're going to want to expect to see half a pound to a pound per week of loss is the right amount of weight to lose. And it blows my mind when people are like, I only lost 4 pounds this month. I want to quit. Because that is the appropriate amount of loss to see in this journey. But again, we don't know what the reference is, and all we see are crazy magazines that say lose 25 pounds in a month, and then we feel like a failure. So all that being said, we're gonna dive into next episode. Okay, we've got the calorie deficit started. How do I really make decisions and adjustments with macros and calories and progress and going back and forth with all that? And then when do you know that you're done dieting, and how do you kind of get out of that and maintain it for good? So I hope you liked this episode. I am having so much fun doing this, and I will look forward to y'all's feedback, but hopefully this was valuable for you. Hopefully you took lots of notes. Save this episode, come back to it, take notes, share this with somebody that this would help. And thank you for your attention. And I will look forward to being back here next week.